everyone, and welcome back to Chefy Things, where today we will be making chocolate chip cookies. For today's recipe, we're going to begin by going over what our equipment is, and then we'll move over to ingredients as we begin the mixing process. So for today, we'll be using, of course, a handy dandy scale, a rubber spatula, and a bowl scrape. Your choice of cookie scoop, depending on what size, if you want larger cookies or smaller cookies so you don't feel bad eating 2 of them at a time. A set of measuring spoons and a mixing bowl, and either a hand mixer or a stand mixer as well. You can also make cookies by hand. It makes it a little bit more worth it, and you just have to have a little more elbow grease. For the beginning of this process, we're going to start off with the very basic of what any cookie really needs is some sort of fat. In this case, we're using butter today, unsalted and softened. So a way to test and see if your butter is softened, of course, leave it out for a couple hours. Some people leave it out overnight. You don't want your butter to be overly soft, but you can go ahead and press your finger without adding or applying too much pressure. So today we are using 1 pound of butter or 4 sticks. We will also be using a combination between granulated sugar and brown sugar. So we'll be using 8 ounces of granulated sugar and 12 ounces of brown sugar. I'm using a light brown sugar, as the brown sugar has molasses, so that helps to create a chewier cookie. And the white sugar or granulated sugar is going to create some tenderizing effects to our cookies. So we're going to go ahead and begin mixing our butter with our sugars together in a method that we like to call the creaming method. So go ahead and get this on. And for this, if you're using a stand mixer, make sure that you're using a paddle attachment, as it helps to kind of push the butter onto the side and help to really kind of get everything incorporated. So we're going to start off low just because I have my really big hunk of butter. You could take and break your butter down as well to help with this process. And so whenever we're creaming, as we get further in, what happens is that our butter and sugar are becoming one and combining, but we're also incorporating some air. This is a very important process necessary for cookie making. So whenever we're creaming, we want our mixture to mix it on a medium-low speed for about 2 to 3 minutes. So we're looking for the butter and sugars to be a little bit lighter in color. Some of the sugar has begun dissolving within the butter. Now, one thing that I do want to point out is that you can overcream your cookies. So that would be allowing your butter to whip up and sugar where it's a really nice pale white color. It's very appealing, but your cookies are going to turn out like pancakes and very flat, which if you like cookie crisp, that's the cookie for you. So I'm going to go ahead and give it another scrape down. So I'm really trying to make sure that all of my butter is getting incorporated in. Go ahead and, on the safe side, break your butter down. Also, whenever you're in between on the scrape down process, make sure to get as much of your mixture off of your rubber spatula so everything's getting incorporated fully. So we're scraping down in between to make sure all of our mixture is getting fully incorporated and we don't have a pocket of butter at the very bottom. It is a little tedious, but I promise it's worth it. So I would say I'm going to lower this off so y'all can take a closer look. So as you can see, it's really kind of starting to come together. We're about halfway through that process. So you can look and see our mixture's kind of smoothing out and becoming one. I have a few hunks of butter that I want to get incorporated in, and it's going to mix about for another minute or so. And I am making sure that I'm scraping down all the way at the very bottom to make sure nothing is left behind. And I'm going to go ahead and scrape everything off of my paddle. And this is the base for any good cookie recipe, or it can be utilized in other techniques that we use, such as cakes and muffins, but that's for another video. Okay, so we're gonna allow this to mix for about another minute at this speed to get everything to come together, and we'll begin with our next process. So while we're allowing this to wait, the next step is going to be adding in our eggs. So we're using 2 large eggs for today. And so with our butter being softened and kind of more on the room temperature side, we're gonna go ahead and make sure we can either pull out our eggs with our butter, so then that way they're both room temperature. With that being said, it's just gonna make sure that your eggs fully incorporate and there's no issues with the mixing. Also, if you happen to forget to take out your eggs, you can leave them in their shells, and we're gonna put a little warm water on them just to kind of help bring them up to room temperature a little bit quicker. So I'm gonna do that real quick. Okay. Alrighty, so our mixture has come together. It's nice and smooth, and it's kind of turned a little bit of a lighter shade in the process. So I'm gonna give it one more really good scrape down. So I'm gonna put this back on. Our eggs have come up to room temperature. We're gonna go ahead and crack them, and then we're also going to add in our vanilla so everything is nice and combined together. Now that we have our eggs cracked, we're gonna go ahead and add our vanilla in. With our egg and vanilla mixture, we're gonna begin adding it into our butter and sugar. Make sure that you add them in one at a time, so that way there's a chance for the mixture to kind of come together. At a low speed as well. And at this point, whenever you're mixing in between each egg, you can turn up the mixer a little bit so everything kind of incorporates a little better. And I'm gonna go ahead and stop my mixture at this stage right here. So, as you can see, everything's kind of come together and it's really kind of starting to look like a batter. So one more really nice scrape down. Like I said earlier, if you overcreamed, it would turn into a cookie crisp or a pancake. Creaming really is what is going to give the final texture of your cookie. So make sure to kind of keep a close eye on that to see. Some people, if you want like a really hunk of cookie where it doesn't really spread out a whole lot, they really go less on the creaming to make sure that you have a thicker, chunkier cookie. So this mixture is gonna get set back onto the mixer bowl, and let's get our dry ingredients prepared. We're gonna go ahead and sift our mixture and all of our dry ingredients. So I'm adding in 1 teaspoon of baking soda and 2 teaspoons of salt. Today I'm using a Himalayan pink salt. That's just what I happen to have on hand. So the salt and baking soda are being added to 20 ounces of all-purpose flour. And I'm sifting over a piece of parchment paper because it will create a nice little funnel whenever we're adding our mixture into our mixer. Make sure to set your flour bowl aside as we will be using it again. Now that we have all of our dry ingredients sifted, we're going to go ahead and begin adding it into our egg butter mixture. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure to keep it on a low speed as nobody needs a flour face. And the really cool part about sifting straight onto the parchment paper is you're going to create a funnel or a nice little ramp for your mixture to go onto. So pinch and grab all of the corners. I say it's easy, I'm struggling. It's fine. And I'm gonna begin adding it in. Now, whenever we're adding in our dry ingredients and our flour mixture, we really just wanna make sure everything kind of comes together. We don't want to overmix this as we're not trying to form any gluten within this process. If those are a few little spots or pockets of flour, we're gonna go ahead and mix that in by hand. So stop it a little bit more premature if you think. And I'm going ahead and stopping my mixture right here. As you can see, there's a few little flour spots, but I am a-okay with that. At this stage, your cookie dough is ready to get all inclusions that you're wanting to put in it to really kind of personalize and add flavor to this. For today's episode, I'm gonna go ahead and show you a few different variations using this cookie dough. I'm gonna go ahead and divide this dough so we can work on those different variations. And if you're using a paddle attachment, as long as you have nice clean fingers and of course no open wounds or cuts, go ahead and use your nice clean hands to get everything off. I went ahead and divided my cookie dough up into 3 portions. So my larger portion is of course going to be chocolate chip cookies. And for that, this is about 30 ounces. We're going to be using 6 ounces of mini semi-sweet chocolate chips and about 2 ounces of a milk chocolate bar. I went ahead and chopped it. I'm doing a combination between milk chocolate and semi-sweet as they have different flavor profiles, and I don't want a cookie that has just milk chocolate, as in my opinion, I feel like it's a little too sweet along with the flavors of the sugar as well. This is now all coming down to preference. You can do a combination of regular size chips, mini chips, and of course adding some chopped chocolate as well. So whenever I'm adding my mix-ins for my cookies, it's a preference of actually mixing by hand. By doing so, there's less likely a chance of any of the chips to be kind of broken up by the paddle attachment in your mixer. And a good tip is the amount of butter that you have is going to be about the amount of mix-ins that you add to the recipe. Now this recipe is great as it is, as it makes quite a few cookies. You could also break this recipe down in half, or you could double it. I'm going to mix all of my cookie dough and then I'll just scoop all together at once. So that is chocolate chip cookies right here. Up next, we're going to go ahead and make some Snickerdoodles out of the rest of this cookie dough. So right here I have 2 ounces of granulated sugar with 2 tablespoons of cinnamon, and of course I get to break out my little whisk. And if you decide that you're going to make just Snickerdoodle cookies, go ahead and do yourself a favor and add a little bit of cinnamon actually into the dough. So for that full recipe where you're using a pound of butter, add about a tablespoon of cinnamon into your dry ingredients. So we'll just scoop these up and then roll them around in our cinnamon and sugar mixture. For the last variation that we're going to do today, I'm going to do a combination of dried cranberries and white chocolate chips. Also, some pretzels would be really good in this as well. I'm a huge salty and sweet person, so I like a combination and balance between. I just don't happen to have any pretzels on hand. And mix-ins can be down to your preference. So if you want chocolate with dried cherries, so you could do a dark chocolate with dried cherries, maybe even throw in some almonds or nuts of choice. So I have a few different variations of our cookies using this one cookie dough recipe. Now let's go ahead and get to scooping. So I'm going to use an ice cream scoop as it's a great way to portion out. You could also take and use your scale and portion out by weight. And also whenever you are scooping, you can kind of go around. Make sure you're not getting just all straight chocolate chips and just having for that last cookie just batter. And right now I'm just really working on making sure they're getting all scooped out, as they're going to take a nice little relaxation time in the refrigerator. And so what that is doing is that it's allowing our butter to kind of re-solidify slightly. It's also going to make sure that if there was any gluten formation, that it kind of cools and calms down and chills for a nice tender cookie. And as I've been working on this cookie dough, I have had my oven set at 350. as it'll be nice and ready for us whenever these cookies are ready to be popped into the oven. Alright, so I am gonna go ahead and round our little cookies just as it's gonna give them a better chance of having a nice uniform circle. And then I'm gonna take and pop it into my cinnamon and sugar mixture. Give it a good little shake. You might have to flip them over every now and then. So this is a great activity that you can do at a gathering. We had a girls' night the other night, and this was a fun activity to do while we yapped. All right, so these are ready to go and take their chill pill in the refrigerator while I get to scoop in the next cookie. Now that the last of our cookies have been scooped, we're gonna go ahead and throw those in to meet the others in the refrigerator to chill for about 30 minutes. In that meantime, I'm gonna do a quick reset on my kitchen. Make sure you clean as you go, so then that way, whenever your cookies are done, you'll just be able to sit back and relax, drink a glass of milk, and eat some yummy cookies. Our cookies have been nice and chilled. It's been about 30 minutes, so I'm gonna go ahead and tray some up because I do wanna store some in my freezer for the next time that I get a hankering for a fresh cookie. So I went ahead and rolled some of the larger cookies. I'm gonna do a combination so you can see the size difference. I'm gonna go ahead and give them about 2 to 3 inches of space in between. I'd rather not overcrowd them so this doesn't turn into a cookie cake. So these are handy dandy quarter sheets. I like using these so I can control this. This is a half sheet. I'm gonna go ahead and put 6 on a quarter sheet just to make sure they have enough space. And I'm gonna go ahead and remove some of the other variations and put the rest in the freezer as well. We have all of our cookies ready to bake. These smaller cookies are about 1 ounce and these larger cookies are a little over 2 1/4 ounces for these cookie sizes. Now we're gonna take and throw them into our 350-degree oven. And of course, these are gonna take anywhere between 12 to 15 minutes, give or take, depending on your oven. And a reminder, halfway through your process of baking, go ahead and rotate your pans and maybe swap the shelves that they're on to make sure that all of the cookies are getting baked off nice and evenly. Let's get these into the oven. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and begin by setting a 5-minute timer to check on our cookies, give them a rotation and a swap, and then we'll continue with that baking process. My goal and my indicators are that they're gonna be kind of a matte finish on the surface, not really shiny, and the outer edges are starting to get a light golden brown color. So we're gonna go ahead and set that timer for 5 minutes and get these popped into the freezer for future use. My timer just went off. I'm gonna go ahead and check my cookies, give them a rotation and a swap, and reset my timer. Ooh. Alrighty, so I'm gonna go ahead and reset my timer for about 6 minutes, just based off of how they're looking. They're gonna need a little bit longer. My timer just went off again to check on the larger chocolate chip cookies, so let's check and see where they're at. Oh yeah, very nice. So they have a nice kind of matte finish to it. We have some golden brownness around the edge. And for me, I'm loving the sweet and salty combination. So I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of a flaky fleur de sel, salt, sprinkle from up high. So then that way it can kind of disperse nice and evenly. So the larger chocolate chip cookies took about 16 minutes, and our smaller 1 ounce portion cookies took about 14 minutes. Now, of course, something to keep in mind, and whenever you're freezing and using cookie dough that's straight from the freezer, it may take a little bit longer for the cookies to bake off, but go ahead and just keep an eye on them and look for those indicators. Now we're gonna allow our cookies to rest for about 5 minutes on the tray, as the carryover heat will continue to cook them. If you feel like you happen to forget your timer and the cookies go a little bit further at this point, if they're starting to get too dark, go ahead and pull your cookies off immediately and place them onto a cooling rack. Our cookies are nice and cooled off, so I'm gonna go ahead and plate some of these up, make them look nice and pretty. I did happen to sprinkle a little bit of my salt on top of some of the white chocolate cranberry just to see what the flavor profile would change to. And we can see the difference between our larger cookie, 2 1/4 ounce cookie, and our 1 ounce. I think I'm gonna go ahead and give the white chocolate cranberry cookie a taste test with the sprinkling salt. So these cookies have a nice kind of crispy edge towards the middle of the cookie. It's nice and soft and a little chewy. In my opinion, the perfect characteristics for a cookie. Cameraman, do you want a taste test?
You already know. I'm going for the Snickerdoodle because it's a classic.
I figured.
One of my favorites. Oh yeah. I approve.
You approve? All right. Cameraman, editor, videographer approves of the cookie. Thank you all for joining me for another episode of Chefy Things, where today we discussed chocolate chip cookies and a few fun variations that you can do at your own home. Thanks so much for joining me. Happy baking.